Hi, I wanted to share just a little bit of additional information that will move us a little bit beyond the concerns-based adoption model work that you did in the last module. Um, One of the things that we didn't really touch on much, I don't think, in the readings, was this idea of the hierarchy of school needs, which is what I'm showing you right here. This was created by David Sobel at Antioch and a colleague of his. And it works from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. But when you're thinking about change, this is a really interesting lens to use to understand why change works sometimes and why it doesn't sometimes. In a couple of folks' comments on their individual posts, I mentioned the situational leadership model as well, which I think is worth exploring. Um, so the hierarchy of school needs basically works from this idea that once the physical space is safe and healthy, and I don't mean the Taj Mahal, but it doesn't have infestations. It um, can do what you need it to do generally, not always easily, but you're not worried about, um, electrical cords hanging down from the ceiling and zapping people. You're not worried about floods in your classrooms. There are appropriate toilet facilities. The kids can drink the water, or there's access to drinking water in the space if there's lead in the pipes. So your physical space is good enough. Um, and then it moves up into this idea of the social fabric that at the next level, we just have to like each other, or be able to be respectful of one another, and that this goes for both the teachers and the staff and school leadership, and the parents and the kids. Everybody generally likes everybody well enough. You don't have to love everybody, but you have a general good feeling about folks. A lot of schools spend a lot of time here. They celebrate birthdays, they throw together different kinds of events. They have a Secret Santa or something. That they work really hard at liking each other. The next stage has to do with a collaborative relationship that has to do with our capacity to go beyond the sort of cocktail party level conversation and to talk about teaching and learning together. I know that there's solid staff coherence when teachers talk about bringing problems of practice to one another, when they talk about being able to discuss classroom practice, their own successes and failures in the staff room, informally, when they feel like everybody's there to help everybody else be a better teacher, and that it's okay to talk about the things that are hard and the places where you may need help. So that's where staff coherence comes in. The next stage, this curriculum development, has to do with really curriculum cohesion. The idea that our pedagogy and our curriculum, our assessment systems, our behavior management systems, that they all work together, and that we agree on them, and that we understand them, and that we can implement them in a way that works for us, but also that there's some flexibility in terms of making them work for us instead of making us work for them. I see a lot of schools that are so tied down to this idea of fidelity of implementation that there's no room for teachers to be creative in making the tools fit their own practice, their own kids, their own needs. So that's the next level. The next stage up from that is this idea of the sense of place, that school and community should be in service to one another all the time. That is where, curriculum coherence and sense of place are where folks most often bring us in at Antioch for support, or they'll bring in professional development services, school coaches to help at those levels. And when we get in, what we find is that the staff coherence is weak. The social fabric is weak. Sometimes even the physical space. It's awfully hard to talk to a faculty about using different instructional methods when they're overrun by mice in their schools, or when there's a roach problem. They're more concerned about the fact that there's mouse poop everywhere than about whether they're able to use the new math program that the district once implemented. And then at the top is this idea of individuation. And it's when an organization is so functional that it can actually adapt, respond, support the unique needs of every student and staff member. Individuation is that sort of, it feels like magic, but it's not. A moment when an organization is functioning so well that things can shift and change, and the organization just sort of flexes around them. And people pick up um, the slack that others drop, and there's no keeping score. There's no, I did this, you do that. Sometimes I know an organization has reached that stage when they don't have things like, teachers sign in and out books to track time, or when teachers um, ask for help covering something and have immediate responses from folks. Even if the response is, I can't do it today, they get a response. And the organization sort of works together to solve whatever the immediate problem is. So, as you're thinking about the concerns based adoption model, as you're thinking about your own experiences with change, big and small, this is another lens that you can use to understand it. And I think it's a very accessible one. The downfall of the concerns-based adoption model is that sometimes it's got a lot of moving pieces and it's a little hard to keep in your brain. But I think this hierarchy is a nice way to, I don't know, think about it now.